Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making the time to joining this session on how automation accelerates data workloads for user consumption of the first of what I believe to be many summits for Ascend. Okay, what are we speaking on today? The agenda today, I will be giving a brief intro to Skydio and the analytics team's responsibilities here. We'll dig into the problems we were facing and why Ascend was the perfect solution to help us resolve this. Most of the time, we'll be on a deep dive into how Ascend enables us to rebuild our entire data warehouse following the medallion architecture of bronze to gold data tiers, and we'll highlight what this enables for the team internally at Skydio. Ultimately, we'll close out with the Q&A. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. Skydio is a world leader in autonomous flight and the largest American drone company with the mission of making the world a more productive, creative, and safe space through autonomous flight. We offer hardware, drones, controllers, beacons, and software, 3D scan, cloud sync, streaming, all driven by our world-class autonomy, catering to both consumers and enterprise PubSec. Enterprise PubSec being companies like PG&E, Verizon, Amazon, Federal, your Department of Defense, Army, Navy, as well as state agencies like your police department. My name is Dai, and I lead the analytics and strategy team here at Skydio. I'm thrilled to be able to speak on the Ascend partnership on behalf of my team. I joined Skydio a year and a half ago to take on a very broad charter of being responsible for managing the analytics tech stack, data architecture, and servicing the entire org's needs for reporting and insights in a centralized analytics hub and spoke approach. The breadth of our departments that we service goes from supply chain and manufacturing to product, hardware, software engineering, and go-to-market teams. All of this is to help make our company's vision a reality through a robust, reliable, timely data pipeline for data-driven insights. Given the number of teams that we support, here are some of the top problems that we had and where Ascend comes into it. The biggest one is that we have a vast number of systems, databases, and a variety of data objects from unstructured data, think your objects, to structured data. Additionally, these data sources operate at different cadences, with manufacturing and product needing near real-time data, and your supply chain getting attachments in emails, if you believe it, on a daily basis, all the way to rudimentary sources such as Google Sheets, which update on an unknown time period. While we have extremely advanced, technically strong folks from your autonomy engineers through your software engineers, we also support the go-to-market leaders down to your support level agents who are completely non-technical. So we support the entire range of technical to non-technical folks. Additionally, given the nature of our business, you might imagine there's a lot of sensitivity around data. Data governance and provisioning is a very high priority within the company as we're managing your flight usage as well as your product usage. So the ability to monitor usage by user is very key to making a successful partnership with any vendor we consider. So then, why Ascend? We assessed many options to achieve this, from having an in-house data engineering team to build, maintain our Airflow environment, to using vendors like Dai Tran, Databricks with their Delta Lake. But ultimately, we felt that Ascend offered the most compelling, cost-efficient suite of products to build the automated data pipelines with. Some of the big things that pushed us to Ascend is that their ability to have time and logic-based triggers for upstream, downstream data flows. They manage the Airflow-like environment, ensuring that we have the reliability and robustness of the technology, leveraging the Spark architecture. Additionally, we're able to provision users to specifically access just what they need, whether it be your data flow or the components within it, all while having an easy way for us to monitor who is doing what. Finally, I do want to highlight that Ascend also offers other functionalities that we're icing on the cake for us, such as the languages they support, SQL, Spark SQL, PySpark, as well as the ability to do table snapshots, sending failure alerts that can be quickly integrated into Slack. And a key piece of what we'll be talking about today is having that centralized data source that feeds many different destinations within and outside of the Ascend environment. All of this, plus their amazing dedicated support team, has made this partnership a great win for Skydio. That said, let's dive into the meat of the conversation. How did Ascend enable us to centralize our data pipelines and reporting needs to support Skydio at large? The following section is really the meat of this conversation. We will begin with a high-level overview of the steps to rebuilding data warehouse to achieve the bronze to gold architecture. I will share the analytics tech stack. We'll showcase how that translates into the different data services and pipeline within Ascend, dive into the bronze to silver tier, what we internally refer to as our foundation data service, talk about the gold data tier, leveraging the data feed functionality from Ascend, what we refer to as production data service, and ultimately the many places that the data feeds and how the different users of various seniority and technical abilities are able to access this to make data-driven decisions. That said, let's jump into the tech stack. This is a slide that gives you an overview of what the current analytics tech stack looks like. From left to right is a diagram of our ingestion, automation, and reporting with details on what we support, how it enters the warehouse, and what happens in the warehouse to ultimately where they go. Starting on the left-hand side with ingestion, some of the systems that we support are your typical SaaS systems like Salesforce, Shopify, ERP with NetSuite, as well as in-house built databases, Postgres-based databases for our cloud API, as well as our vehicle testing. Cloud API being your flight logs, your software usage, what features you're using when you're taking these missions. Vehicle testing being the parts that go ultimately into the products like our drones, so that we can run it through the gambit of tests that we do, get the parameters of the readout, make sure it meets our requirements, and then packaging it up, shipping it off to customer. There's a couple of other data sources like DCL, S&B, which are the ones that are sending us email attachments on a daily cadence. Then a couple of other sources like Jira, Zendesk. So this is just a snippet of all the different data sources that we support. Most of these go through Fivetran to get into the database. That said, we also leverage Ascend's Postgres Direct Connector for our Postgres databases, namely Cloud API, vehicle testing, to get it into the environment while not having to pay the high fees that Fivetran costs in order to use their service. So that was a great value save for us. Once it's in the data lake, we break it out into the 3 tiers of bronze, silver, and gold. This is all driven by Ascend's automation and orchestration abilities. On the bronze side, this is your raw schemas, your tables, basically untouched data directly from the sources. Then we do the data munging, the cleaning, get it to your silver status. We bifurcate it by whether it's an event, so a flight event, a purchase log, a failure event, as well as your dimensions. This is your customer, your division type, as well as your vehicle type. From silver, we ultimately make it to the gold tier. These are your aggregated, these have your dimensions that you're interested in to become the data sources that then feed the reporting section. On the reporting side, we write to a ton of places. It could be different systems, back to Postgres, to S3 buckets, extracts, flat files, data cubes, as well as our primary visualization tools, which are Tableau. These are your exec level, high metrics that then anyone can access at any point, to Imply, which is a vendor that enables the user to play with the data because they have access to an entire data cube for self-exploration and to build their own workbooks. I'd be remiss to not mention that we also send this to Databricks, which then has their Redash and Jupyter notebooks, where we also build our reports on top of it in addition to sharing the queries and the code that underlies all of this for our more technically enabled users. So we are ingesting from a ton of places, doing hundreds of transformations at different cadences throughout the day, and writing it to a myriad of destinations. All of this enables our team to leverage the materials that we have, whether it be for QBRs, board of directors slides, or even to customer-facing reports on what they're using and what service value that they're getting out of Skydio. All of this might be feasible without Ascend. It would be incredibly complicated and hard to maintain. But with Ascend, we've been able to greatly reduce the cost as well as increase the reliability and the accuracy of what we're sharing. That said, let's jump into how these different systems that we support translates to the data services at the bronze and silver level. So part of our data warehouse rebuild process, we had an idea to take the many data services. On here, you'll see a screenshot of the different data services that we have within Ascend and their corresponding components for read, transform, write, data feed, and grouping. You'll notice that we have hundreds across these 4 different types of functionality, but our goal is to greatly simplify this. So going from previously data services structured around departments or themes like your customer to foundation and production, which are now the only 2 data flows that really drive most, if not everything, as it relates to automation and orchestration. Obviously, there is also a sandbox for our continual development. That seems pretty standard for everyone, so hopefully that's not a surprise. But by and large, all of these things have now been collapsed into 2 central data flows. We're going to start looking at the foundation data flow first, and I'll show you what we're using Ascend for within that data flow to achieve that bronze to silver transformation. What you're seeing here is our foundation data service. And on the left-hand side, you'll see that there are a large number of groups. So we've taken the other data services and created groups within our foundation data flow to then logically structure it, as well as be able to identify what are the dependents and cross-combine our different data sources into things that make sense for an event and dimension customization. You'll also notice that we are doing a lot of read connectors, a ton of transformation connectors, and write connectors all within this silver tier, because for folks who are more technically adept, we write it back out into the data warehouse, or we give them access into Ascend so they can do direct querying on top of these transformations with all of the code that then is used to create these views. No longer do they wonder, what are my different filter conditions? How are these things being joined? What dimensions are you cutting out and what are you creating on your own? That's all feasible just by having all of this grouped together. The other nice thing is that if I were to expand everything, you'll see like 100+ DAGs. That's incredibly overwhelming. So we really leverage groups to make it simple, neat, while maintaining the data lineage that we need so that we know what's feeding what. On the right-hand side, we expanded the opportunity group to show you just some of the places that we're drawing the data from, whether it be from Redshift, Postgres, even Google Sheets, Clary, in order to get just the pieces that we think are pertinent to give an opportunity-based focused data source. So within the read connectors, we draw from a ton of places. Then we leverage Spark SQL, PySpark to enable the event and dimension breakouts that we're looking for the proper data transformation. And then ultimately, we're writing back to the warehouse, as well as using data feeds, which will then connect to our production data service in order for us to have one data flow that feeds into multiple places already within Ascend and back to the data warehouse. That said, this is how our tech stack translates into our foundation data service to what goes into the data service. I'll continue using the opportunity-based data sources in order to drive this narrative of what we're doing for just this one data service. So we'll move forward to showing you what the production data source looks like. This is our production data service, better known as a gold tier based on medallion data tiers. This is where we're really opening up the wealth of the different data feeds that we have from the foundation to do your cross joins, further munging, further cleaning, and more advanced transformation. So using the opportunity, you now see that we're actually leveraging the snapshot functionality to create snapshots of the key objects. That way we can do things like week over week pipeline change, day over day changes in your opportunity level. What was changed? What was created? Where was this moved to? Who does this align to? Additionally, we're using things like PySpark to start doing your drivers of opportunity. This is where we're considering things like conversion rates, average opportunity value. What is your velocity to getting through our overall pipeline? This is foundational for a true bottoms-up build as it relates to a typical SaaS business model. Additionally, we're weaving in things such as our quarterly and annual targets so that every time this thing is running, we have the latest posts on how are we doing relative to our targets? What are the drivers of the targets? What are the components that have changed? This then is then sent over to a couple of sources, again, Redshift or Databricks, Tableau, with a send to Tableau direct connector, as well as this new functionality that I want to highlight on the right-hand side, which is your PySpark ability to then write to Google Sheets. This is great for folks who are less technical but needs to have the level of detail down to the opportunity line item. So these are your operational folks, for example, or even an exec who is very hands-on with his sales team. This functionality was something that wasn't pre-built, but something that Ascend was able to help us build given the complexity of our business. So now that we've gone through the tech stack, the silver, the bronze and silver layer, as well as the gold, highlighting just one of the data groups that we're focused on here, opportunity, let me show you what that looks like from the user's perspective. Here, you'll see three destinations from that one opportunity snapshot data source. It feeds into the Databricks environment, to Tableau, as well as to Google Sheets, each of which was built with input from the stakeholders to get what they're looking for at the level of granularity that they're looking for, as well as consideration for the technical spectrum that the users might be in, with the most technical going through Databricks, less technical going through Tableau, and your least technical folks going through Google Sheets. On the Databricks side, because it's one data source that feeds all three, we're very comfortable knowing that our data is consistent across any places that a user might use, which brings trust. It gained a lot of adoption within the company, and we know that what we're putting out there is correct. So folks who are technically enabled, they go through Databricks, they can query it, or they can leverage the queries and the code that we already have within either the Redash dashboard, the SQL editor, or the Jupyter notebooks to see what they're looking for. That said, we also have a staple of pre-built analytics stamp of approval dashboards. So things like day-over-day snapshot, cut by division, cut by product, all of that is available already within Databricks. Now moving over to Tableau, this is your more polished, slide-ready type of suite of reporting. Within Tableau, as we all know, you have to pre-design these things as well as the dimensions, what can people filter on. It's great given the suite of visualizations that they support, as well as their data extracts functionality, which lines up very well with Ascend extract as well as update capabilities, but it's fairly limited for a user. Anytime someone wants a different view, or they want to change something, or even make slight edits to the title so they can drop into their slide, ultimately they have to come back to the analytics team for us to do these small updates to large iterations. That said, still, by having that comprehensive underlying data source, these things are quick and easy for the team to build while ingesting what the business needs are. On the Google Sheets side, because we are able to send entire snapshot data sets into Google Sheet, every time it runs, they'll create a different tab. Then we have pre-built exhibits that point to the latest data source. So you can do things like your chart, your lowest level of granularity down to what did someone purchase? What part is needed? So your operational folks, as well as your support team, can go in to say, hey, this is what we see that you have purchased. This was the delivery date. If it changed, they'll have it all in one place. And the nice thing about it is for folks who are using Google Slides, you can then have your set of slides pointed to the Google Sheet. That way, when the data changes, the slide automatically refreshes, and the quarterly reporting, customer-facing things, as long as you have a suite of metrics that you've aligned on and how we like to visualize it to drive the conversation with them, it's almost as simple as push of the button. Really, by using Ascend, in order to give us this centralized source of truth feeding into many different places using the robust architecture that we have, we're able to have gained so much trust from our users, as well as keeping the team very sane, relatively lean, and focus more on the things that really drive analytics, your insights. How do you use this data to make product recommendations, to improve go-to-market? But really, it's how do we make the customer experience better so that we drive towards the goal of making the world a more creative, productive, and safe space through autonomy. So what does this lead to? How is this being received? This is a direct quote from Mike Baker. He's the head of the Mayor Sales, and he and his team was thrilled to be able to see the high-level reporting as well as the lowest level granularity so that he can provide accurate forecasts to the company, drive his team towards these goals, and dig down into the opportunity, even the line item level within the opportunities, to understand what's causing the change to our business. He's so thrilled. He sent this quote through with the CEO CC'd saying, "This type of data will dramatically aid us in demand planning in the future as we continue to build a history." All of this was made feasible by having that strong, robust data automation workload, largely driven through Ascend, and the ability for us to service a wide range of our user base from technical to non-technical in the medium, as well as at the level of granularity that they're looking for. None of this would be possible without the support of both the Skydio team and the Ascend team. So I would be remiss if I did not call out some of the folks that have contributed to this. So again, none of this is possible without Skydio's internal support and belief in our vision, my team's incredible effort, as you imagine, building an entire data warehouse, as well as maintaining and supporting so many different reports, insights. It's a gargantuan effort, as well as Ascend's amazing partnership. So these are some of the folks that I'd like to express sincere gratitude to, not by any particular order, just alphabetical, from the Ascend side with Joe, John, Cheyenne, and Sheil, and within the analytics team here at Skydio, Dinesh, Keenan. I look forward as we venture more and more into Ascend so that we can start using our unstructured data via PySpark to dig deeper into telemetry, GPS, vehicle analytics to drive a deeper, better understanding of our customers and how we can ultimately enable them for success, underwritten by the strong partnership that Ascend and Skydio has. That said, I want to say a sincere thank you to everyone for having made the time to join on this session today. I'd love to hear back from you. You can reach out to me either at Dai@Skydio, find me on LinkedIn. But that wraps up my presentation. I want to take a step back and open this up to questions. Feel free to drop it into the chat. I will be here to interact. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out in the manners I listed. Thank you.